Welcome back to English Made Interesting. Today I will explain the poem A Roadside Stand by Robert Frost. Robert Frost is a highly acclaimed American poet of the 20th century. He wrote about characters, people, and landscapes. His poems are concerned with human tragedies and fears. His reaction to the complexities of life and his ultimate acceptance of his burdens. Stopping by the woods in a snowy evening, birches mending walls are a few of his well-known poems. In the poem A Roadside Stand, Frost presents the life of poor, deprived people with pitiless clarity and with deep sympathy and humanity. Everyone pretends to be their benefactor but are actually greedy good doers. The poem is deeply moving as it vividly, that is clearly, depicts the plight and the complex dynamics that influence simple rural folk. It tells the sad plight of economically underfed rural people who are often fooled by the cunning people who are responsible for their pathetic existence. The poet cannot bear their sadness, so he sympathizes with them. Now, over to the first stanza. The little old house was out with a little new shed in front at the edge of the road where the traffic sped. Which means, on the roadside, there is an old house which has an extended shed. This shed is towards the edge of the road. The owners have made this towards the edge so that the fast moving vehicles speeding by may notice and stop there to buy the food and refreshments sold there. A roadside stand, that too pathetically pled. It would not be fair to say for a dole of bread, but for some of the money, the cash whose flow supports. Which means this shed made a pitiable sight. It almost seemed as if it was begging for food, but that was not so. Rather, it was made so that the rich people who passed by the shed in their beautiful cars would stop there and buy something, so that some cash would flow into the hands of the owners, who then would be able to buy some of the things that are sold in the city. The flowers of cities, from sinking and withering, faint. The polished traffic passed with a mind ahead, or if ever aside a moment, then out of sorts at having the landscape marred with the artless paint. Which means that the poor feel that the money the rich spend to adorn their gardens with flowers can be used to better the lot of the less privileged. But the rich people pass by without paying any attention to the shed. If anyone cared to stop, it was only due to the irritation at the paint and decor in poor taste that was marring the picturesque scenery of the area. Of signs that with N turned wrong and S turned wrong, which means Also, the shed had a board on which the word stand was painted such that the letters S and N in it were written in reverse, displaying the carelessness of the local people. Offered for sale wild berries in wooden quads or crook-necked golden squash with silver warts, which means this shed sold wild berries in wooden boxes and gourds with twisted necks and silver lumps on them. Or beauty rest in a beautiful mountain scene, which means besides these things, the place also offered a stay in the scenic surroundings. However, the travelers felt that these poorly kept stands spoiled the pristine beauty of the landscape. You have the money, but if you want to be mean, why keep your money and go along? Which means that the rich who passed by the place had the money but had no desire to spend it. According to them, persons who looked after the roadside stand, they were mean and miserly. They wanted to keep the money with themselves. Now, over to the second stanza. The hurt to the scenery would not be my complaint, so much as the trusting sorrow of what is unsaid. Which means the poet does not want to accuse the rustics of marring the beauty of the landscape. He is more worried about the untold pain that unsaid words cause to the faith of the people belonging to the countryside. Here, far from the city, we make our roadside stand and ask for some city money to feel in hand, which means the rustics have installed a roadside stand so far away in the countryside just to earn some hard cash, to try if it will not make our being expand and give us the life of the moving pictures promise that the party in power is said to be keeping from us, which means they long to have a comfortable lifestyle as depicted in movies. They hope against hope that the citizens may fulfill the promise of giving them economic independence, although it was within the purview of the party in power to do so. Purview means concern, within the concern of the party in power to do so. Now over to the third stanza. It is in the news that all these pitiful kin are to be bought out and mercifully gathered in to live in villages next to the theatre and the store, where they won't have to think for themselves anymore. Which means it is in the news that these countryside folk are to be relocated in the villages where they will have all comforts. They will enjoy privileges of the theatre and the local store just like their urban counterparts. So busy will be these people in enjoying these comforts that they will have no time to think about themselves or fight for their rights. While greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey, swarm over their lives, enforcing benefits that are calculated to soothe them out of their wits. And by teaching them how to sleep, they sleep all day, destroy their sleeping at night the ancient way. Which means the halves are called beasts of prey because in the garb of benefits that they will provide to the rustics, they will exploit them no end. Later, the privileged ones will easily forget their promises they made, leaving these poor people more impoverished. Hope you understand. Now, over to stanza 4. Sometimes I feel myself I can hardly bear the thought of so much childish longing in vain, which means the poet is very disturbed and feels very helpless when he sees their children longing for money which is never fulfilled. The sadness that lurks near the open window there, that waits all day in almost open prayer for the squeal of brakes, the sound of a stopping car, which means these people keep their windows open all day as if in prayer, waiting desperately and uselessly for someone to stop at the stand. Sadness at their disappointment can be noticed all around the place when no one stops there. Of all the 1,000 selfish cars that pass, just one to inquire what a farmer's prices are, which means out of the 1,000 of cars passing by, just one stopped only to inquire the prices of things sold there. And one did stop, but only to plow up grass, in using the yard to back and turn around. Which means another stopped just to use the backyard of the place to reverse their car. And another to ask the way to where it was bound. Which means yet another stopped just to inquire about the directions or where it wanted to go. And another to ask could they sell it a gallon of gas, which means the fourth stopped to know if they could sell them a gallon of gas, which means petrol. They couldn't, they had none. Didn't it see? Which means the farmer grumbles in an angry manner that they could see for themselves that it was not sold there. Actually, the country people are upset over the careless attitude, which means compassionless attitude of city dwellers. Moreover, it shows a contrast between the thinking of the city denizens and the stark reality of the rural people. Now, over to stanza 5. No, in country money, the country scale of gain, the requisite lift of spirit has never been found, or so the voice of the country seems to complain. Which means, finally, the poet bemoans, which means to express grief or distress, that the spirit to scale new heights, to break the shackles of economic dependency is not present in the rustics, That is why they do not stop complaining against the economic inequalities. I can't help owning the great relief it would be to put these people at one stroke out of their pain, which means the poet strongly feels that the countryside people should be freed from the pain of poverty and deprivation. And then next day, as I come back into the same, I wonder how I should like you to come to me and offer to put me gently out of my pain. Which means, next morning, when the poet gains his senses, he wonders, what if someone else thinks in the same manner for him, so that he is gently relieved from his pain and agony of seeing the miserable condition of these people. Hope it's clear. Now over to the poetic devices.